one of the big worries is the children. The young children, we've got a real problem with obesity. So Bahara runs a big schools program, which we'll talk about in a minute, to try and educate the kids and the teachers into healthy livings and healthy diet. So if we can get to the type 2, we can control it. Type 1, we're too late. Gone past that stage. So those are the 3 main arms that we're looking at. Research-wise, we have a team of 50 plus scientists, about 40 projects.
44 projects.
Yeah, okay. And with and we're funded at the moment 100% by KFAS.
Yeah, so actually we were rewarded by the Department of State. We got the Innovation Fund. We applied through the American Embassy here in Kuwait, and we received a grant to host 18 healthy sessions, which basically involve the kids come from the schools. They go through a series of workshops. One is they learn about food, what's in their food, the different types of food. Then they go to the kitchen, they actually make a healthy snack. So we make different versions or healthier versions of nachos, which is something that a lot of kids like to eat. Very friendly to go outside, especially in the summer. So we try to teach them a lot of indoor activities as well as outdoor. And then finally, they a lot of kids feel that when you say to exercise, it means to go run for hours on a treadmill. We're trying to change that perception and really teach them that even by doing simple chores at home, that can session as well, because we know the kids have an affinity towards soccer, and so they get to learn different sorts of dribbling techniques.
But then you're taking research from
that.
Those
absolutely. The
cases.
premise behind it all was, in order to really do research on a subject level, you're going to have to incorporate clinical subjects and clinical research.
Right.
And
so that's the patients here. You're not just treating them and not watching them. You're actually learning from their treatment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's a unique institute in the sense that it's quite holistic, so you get all these different facets, of course, under the umbrella of research, but you do get to see clinics in action, you do get to see some training and education, all, again, under the umbrella of research, but it's going on at the same time. And so it's really easy to collaborate, and we have a collaboration with the Sabah Ahmed Center, on a sleep apnea clinic that we opened about a year ago to do sleep apnea research and diagnosis.
That's prevalent with diabetes
yes.
as well. Oh, okay.
Is that Dr. Abdul Mohsen out of Turkey?
Yes, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's good, I've worked with him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
Very, very capable doctor.
I believe he got like a U.S. patent.
He has at least
Yeah.
one patent, maybe
Yeah.
2.
Yeah,
So we opened his clinic downstairs probably 3 months ago.
That's good, I would actually like to see that while we're here.
Sure,
We could.
sure, I'd be happy to
Pleasure.
show it to you. But even so more important are national collaborations with our sister centers or other institutions such as Kuwait University and so on.
Children want to really get out and play soccer or play softball or play football. Unfortunately, they'd rather sit home and do this.
Right.
And so it's geared towards just getting them out of the chair
Right.
when they're not so inclined to join a team or a club or something. So it sounds like, even this kite flying program and just things like that. That's very unique.
Whether it's sitting down and making a scrapbook, or whether it's going out there and flying a kite, you can start to promote this sort of behavior and then hopefully see a change.
And then listening about the he was showing me the kitchen that you have and the classes on how to maybe just change the diet a little bit or change the way you make something.
Exactly. The nachos especially, because nachos can be so high in fat. First, the chips that you use, the exorbitant amount of cheese and the fat and the meat. So we try to teach them healthier versions, like use ground turkey instead, less cheese or low-fat cheese. Add a lot more vegetables. We do a whole training on vegetables and fruits and different tastes. And again, Kuwait's it's an interesting country because you've got the demographic spread. You have some kids who are accustomed to eating a lot of vegetables because they live further out, but then you have some who can name every vegetable and every fruit and have tried it. So we try to cater to their learning abilities and also to what they culturally are accustomed to, because even though it's a small
No, and even in Miami Lakes, it's heavily Hispanic, and that can be very unhealthy food, if you will, very tasty, but very very fattening.
Yes, hence the nachos.
As well as not good for the arteries and lots of things.
Right, absolutely.
So it's a challenge.
So unique. that it all sits under one roof.
I know, I've never seen anything like
It
this.
doesn't exist anywhere in the Gulf. And from that, we've just been recognised as the reference centre for diabetes in the Gulf. They had a meeting of the Council of Ministers of Health, nominated Dasman as the reference centre, which is good achievement.
Announcement or something like
That's
that,
right.
about a month ago.
We did.
What was it?
That was it.
Okay.
The recognition as the reference centre for the Gulf, yeah, by the Council of Ministers. And they, like you just said, they saw that it all exists under one roof, so it interrelates. And with the international collaboration programs that Bahar was mentioning with in the UK and Europe, we can bring it all together. And
I heard you had like a presentation about quinoa from Peru.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have any international collaborations there?
We're actually trying to start one. One of the most important parts about quinoa, or scientifically, is to understand how it actually lowers blood glucose levels. And so there is an institute, and I can't recall the name right now, in Lima that actually looks at people. They put patients on a strict quinoa diet, and they measure their blood glucose levels after 4 hours, and they watch these patients for about 6 days. So we're trying to implement the same program here in Kuwait. The problem is that quinoa is not very familiar to the culture, and so what we're trying to do is encourage people to use it as a rice substitute. But that requires us kind of modifying the flavor to be palatable, because quinoa can be quite nutty and a little bit dry if it's not cooked well. So instead of using this common dish machbous, where they make it with rice, we're trying to substitute quinoa for that.
As you perceive it, I've been all over Peru in various medical schools and universities. That's an area of active interest.
Right.
And quinoa is comes in many forms and many tastes.
Sure. And that whole workshop that we had was kind of an introduction to different recipes, and we wanted to see what our patients and kind of the public responded to. It was open to the public, and so
That's
people
pretty good.
really enjoyed it, actually, the food.
Yeah.
it is, and we've had meetings with the major supermarket chains to try and encourage them with their food selections, their display of food, diabetic food, to encourage them to take it to the forefront rather than just keep it at the back.
Right, I mean, there you go, now you're changing the accessibility and the perception of that it's not just something in the back, oh,
That's
I need
right.
this health food, this is popular.
That's right.
I mean, advertising is very important
Yeah.
these days, obviously. You can encourage people to think that they do or don't like something.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so let's use it for a really good purpose.
No, I mean the OSN, which is one of the major television programs, now promotes healthy living and obesity and diabetes. And just doing small adverts every now and then, it just gets it out.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's not that easy to change the culture.
No.
I mean, you're talking about
Anywhere.
culture, that's
Anywhere.
been there for a long time, but I'm really surprised. I mean, this is amazing effort. I mean, somebody has to take the steps to change the culture, promote something new, and introduce something different. I want to ask you back to the kids program.
Yes.
So how many kids you train?
Each session that we host, we can, it depends, it's between 50 to 70 kids at a time. So for example, this week we're doing sessions Sunday through Wednesday. We'll have school every day. The age group varies. Initially we started because I adopted this program similar to something I was doing in the States with the Junior League, which was called Kids in the Kitchen, which was basically trying to get kids to cook their own food.
Right.
The original proposal, the Kids in the Kitchen age group, was 9 to 11, because you don't want the kids to be too young to be in the kitchen by themselves. You also wanted them to kind of have an understanding of taste and flavors. But for this program, it was more successful when we started to target kids between 7 and 9. They were responding better. The older kids were kind of a little bit more set in their ways. That's not means to say that we didn't, we just adapted the program. So if we do the 7 to 9 is what I explained to you. For the 9 to 11, we add in some sessions when we talk about food, we're a little bit more detailed about it. So we actually use their exposure. Like this croissant, for example, it's got this much fat, this much sugar. If you want to have a croissant, perhaps you use this brand instead. And then we do a session for older kids where we talk to them about metabolism, what's actually happening in your body, what does it mean to store fat versus what happens to carbohydrates if you eat too much, why do they say to eat proteins. And then we also do a question and answer session with them where they're able to ask questions about health and food. And They ask some really, really interesting questions. You know, you underestimate how smart kids
Right.
really are nowadays. And so they challenge us sometimes, and we get a panel of scientists along with nutritionists and doctors, and then we have a career session for them as well to encourage them to go into the sciences and the medical field more. So we have them ask about what is it like to be a doctor, what's the training like, what's education like.
So do you cooperate with the Ministry of Education on this?
Yeah, we did. So last year when we launched it, the Ministry of Education was the source of our schools. So we got public schools all the way from Jahra to Ahmadi. They are the section, and so we're working with them very closely to send the schools in which they know have problematics, meaning problematic in terms of overweight kids. You know, so. Because they measure the kids' height, weight every year, so we kind of try to target schools that actually need a little bit more help on the education side. And so we can hold these sessions both in Arabic and English.
Well, probably we'll cooperate with you because, we have a gifted students classes
Oh, excellent.
within the Ministry of Education.
Oh,
Of course, we run exams to identify gifted students.
right.
And we gather them in one class within the same school, public school. So now we have 20, 40, we have around 100 students. And they are in grade 4 and 5.
Excellent.
And they are gifted and we prepared the curriculum for them in cooperation with Purdue University
Oh.
and Johns Hopkins University of the States. So it would be wonderful to bring our kids
Absolutely, we'd
for
love
such
to.
a session.
Would, yeah, definitely.
They'd
Yeah.
probably challenge us in a different way
Yeah,
in terms of
because we
presenting the
used to-
information.
We used to have a nutrition consultant that gives consultation for those students and their parents,
Right.
because whatever they eat, it will affect their brain.
That's right.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we had that in the last year actually, and we haven't started that yet this year, but probably a class like this would be very interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
we'd
sure
be
we could
happy
do
to
that.
host
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
It'd be
that'd be
wonderful.
great.
So what kind of business development are you doing? It's an interesting title.
Traditionally, I'm a scientist, right? So I'm actually a biochemist, and prior to coming to Kuwait, I was a faculty member at Georgia Tech. So I won't go into the football stories. I was going to see what your affiliation is. But anyway, we are unique in the sense that we are a research institution, but we have non-research related activities. So as Michael stated earlier, KFAS, which is our mother company, funds all of our research and our research related activities, which means a component of our education, nutrition, fitness, and so on. For the part that the budget that is given by KFAS does not cover, we are looking at doing two things. The first thing is developing our research facilities as revenue centers. So in other words, allowing people from other institutions to use our genomic center or animal house for testing, for research, and so on. We're also submitting grants to different